All right, Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. I'm gonna get into something that I saw today. As I was going through Babylon. Um, I want to show you this real quick. But you see, sometimes you'll see this madness on people's cars and company vans, just all kind of madness. They have it on the 18-wheelers, tractor trailers, and this is so confusing, right? When you look at it. First off, the Messiah, when they got this J name here, this is who they see. This is who they talking about. This is the mascot of Christianity right here. This is what they talking about, an idol. And you see a lot of these Christians that say this catchphrase right here. Don't know what it means, don't know what they're saying. They're completely parroting what they heard, you know. And look at this flag right here. It says, God bless America, right? So if this person had any kind of knowledge about the Bible, this wouldn't even make logical sense because America is Babylon. The Lord is going to destroy Babylon. This is why we don't take you Christians seriously, because you're mentally ill. You're mentally ill. You're mentally ill with your so-called white Jesus. This is so confusing right here. But I'm gonna go into what I saw in this car today, and it inspired me to do this lesson. So in this car, the Edomite-looking woman had this scripture written, Jeremiah 29:11. And see, we starting to, we've been knowing this about you Christians. Use the Bible as an inspirational picker upper, an inspirational message, an inspirational punchline. That's what you people think the Bible is all about. So I'm gonna get into this real quick. But Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you," said Yahweh. They ask a Christian, "What's the Most High name?" They don't know name is. They don't look at you like you got three hands because they don't know anything. It says, "Thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you to give you an expected end." So this she had this particular scripture written on her car, and she had it written out, the whole verse written out. And what it made me really think of is how ignorant a Christian is, and how these people think the Bible is applied to the Christian church or applied to them individually. So if you're going to do some study, that's why we don't take you Christian seriously, because you're a joke, you're a laughing stock to us. Let's go here. And they do many scriptures like this. They think it's just, they could quote a nice scripture that they like, they can make it apply to them, and that's it, right? Right here. What is this talking about? And you ain't learned that in the Christian church, and that leads to these people that actually fuse their ignorance. It says the context is key at the top. It says the exiled Israelites, it says Salakia. It's like I'm kind of tired, man. This is one of them days, but it says to exile Israelites. It says the message was sent to the people in forced captivity, facing hardship, not a blanket promise for instant earthly success. So this is to the Israelites. And this is what a Christian don't understand. They are completely delusional when it comes to the understanding of the Bible. They don't have no clue what's going on. They just pick certain random scriptures and that sound good to them, and they write it on their car. They, you know, they'll put it on their, I'm saying, on their vision board at home or something like that, and make it apply to their madness. Let's go here. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get into this chat GPT real quick. Give me 1 second.
You're touching on a real scholarly issue, not a fringe idea. Historically speaking, you're largely correct. The Bible, especially the Hebrew scriptures, was written by, to, and about the Israelites.
Hear that?
The confusion comes from how it later got reframed, translated, and theologized. Let me break this down clearly and honestly. 1.
And I'm gonna correct chat GPT when it goes off, because it's been, they programming it to tell lies now. When it first came out, it was telling the raw truth. Now they're trying to muzzle it, right? They're trying to control the narrative on ChatGPT. So let's get into this.
What the Bible originally was, Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, written in Hebrew and some Aramaic, produced by Israelite scribes, priests, and prophets, addressed to Israel, Judah, their kings, priests, exiles, and tribes, deals with Israel's covenant with Yahweh, Israel's law, land, exile, restoration, Israel's enemies, punishments, and hopes. Verses often misunderstood. You equals Israel, my people Israel, the nations non-Israelites. This was national theology, not a global self-help book. The New Testament didn't
There
start
you go,
universal.
self-help book. You know what I'm saying? That's what people think it is, a warm and fuzzy. That's why they find their favorite scriptures that make them feel good, and they think the whole Bible is applied to them, and they think it's that's what it's all about, love and love and love, and you know, some more love, and that's it. Let's keep going.
Either Jesus and the earliest followers. Jesus explicitly says, open quote, I was sent only to the lost sheep.
And his name not Jesus. His name is Yahweh Shai. And he'll be in the image of a so-called black man. That's what people, because people, everybody see this guy in their mind. Let's be real about it. Because this is a real enchantment, witchcraft, a deep sorcery that's on the people's minds, most of the people. So this is who they talking about. When you hear them write down, put scriptures on a car and quote, they'll say the J name and say he's nothing but love. This is who they talking about. Let's go back here. Let's get more into this.
The house of Israel, Matt 15, verse 24. The disciples were all Jews, followed Torah, expected Israel's national restoration. The earliest movement was a Jewish reform movement, not a new religion.
And remember, this word Jew and Jewish is all new speak. These are Israelites. They're not Jewish people. Because the reason why they put the word Jewish there so you can see them, that word is a real trigger. It's a trigger word. So we are not Jews or Jewish. We the Israelites, the ancient Israelites. That's where we descend from. And Israel had 12 sons. That's where we descend from.
Number 3. So how did it get universalized? A. The Septuagint, Greek translation. Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek. Greek was the international language of the Roman world. Translation removed cultural nuance, changed meanings of key Hebrew terms, made Israel's text readable to non-Jews. Once the text left Hebrew culture, interpretation shifted. B. Paul, the major turning point.
Okay. So what they'll try to say, because people that's unlearned, they'll say Paul, which you got to be stupid to think that. Paul was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. What he was doing is bringing back in the fold because he already had the instructions from Yahweh Shai, right? That was already known, common knowledge that when Yahweh Shai gave the 12 instructions moving forward, and later Paul and all that, all the brethren that came after that, they already understood that the doctrine is only for the Israelites. So what Paul was doing, that's why you got to know your history. During the Maccabean period, during Alexander the so-called Great, well, he's a devil. What happened to the Israelites? A lot of them got Hellenized. They went under that Greek culture, so they assimilated to the Greek culture. They was calling themselves Greek names. They went by Greek identities. They wouldn't associate themselves with being Israelites because it was forbidden for them to call themselves Israelites. How hard is that to understand? But that's why they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible, so you won't be able to make that connection. And those Gentiles that was coming back into the fold was Israelites that was calling themselves Greeks and other ethnicities. Paul wasn't going to no heathens, and that's what you've been taught, and that's nothing but a lie. And that's why, this group Sakari, which, they fall from grace, would, go to show you they weren't right, but they were saying Paul and other Israelites think this way too, because they don't understand that Yahweh Shah taught Paul. Paul was going to fish in the Israelites that had fell away, and you stupid Israelites that think Paul was going to save the other nations, and that's why some of you Israelites and some brothers that's just mildly know about the truth, they think Paul was going off. No, you just don't have the understanding. Paul was going to fish in Israelites. That's it. He wasn't going to get other heathens from other nations. And that's a misunderstanding because most of our people are not learned. They don't understand Paul. They don't even understand what the word Gentile properly means, and they don't understand, depending on the context, that Israelites can be called Gentiles and heathens can be called Gentiles. It depends on the context because they only been taught that the word Gentile, Gentiles in the plural sense of it, is always talking about the other nations, and that's called ignorance. Most Israelites don't study shit. They don't know nothing. They know a little bit of some. You got some Israelites that know a little bit, some, but that's it. The rest they know is based into folly. It says ignorance. It says the meaning of ignorance is a state of or fact of being ignorant, lack of knowledge, lack of education, lack of awareness. And did not the scripture say, study to show yourself approved? So people that don't understand Paul's writings, and Paul was writing to all the Israelites that was dispersed. That's another thing that people don't understand. Paul never went to no other heathens, went to heathens in general. He was going to the Israelites, the lost sheep that fell away, that was calling themselves Greeks, that was calling themselves Romans, they was calling themselves other ethnicities, false ethnicities, but these were Israelites that fell away. That's why it says go to the lost sheep, Yahushua, because they lost their identity. It's just simple. Let's go here. But to get back on the Christians, see, the Christians been taught the Bible applies to them in the Christian church, and that's where the disconnect comes in because the Bible is only for the Israelites, and you people don't understand that. But you have some people, some Edomites, and some people that have a little, understanding that's not dumb. They do understand what we saying is the truth because you can literally read the scriptures, and it'll tell you when you start into the chapters who he talking to. He said, "Oh, children of Israel," right? With children that ain't talking about no little kids. It's just talking about really it's going into the sons of the man Israel will be, the men. Simple as that. It says 2 Thessalonians 2:10. It said, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So you got to have a passion about this. You got to want to see. You got to seek the truth out. You got to dig in. You got to be relentless with this, man. Because if not, you're gonna get snared. 2 Thessalonians 2:11. It says, and for this cause Yahweh should send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. So when you say God is all love, you're delusional because this scripture cuts that. And there's many other scriptures that we can go to. That's why we don't take Christians seriously. We don't want to talk to you. It ain't nothing to talk about. Because you mentally ill. It's like me, it's like us trying to talk to somebody that's bugged out of their mind. You're not going to get anywhere. So again, it's for the people that got sense that can understand this. It's only for the elect. Let's go here. So the rest of the world is in a strong delusion. They don't know what's going on. They're delusional. And that's why they write these scriptures on their cars. They quote them. Some of them get it tattooed on them. Did not the Lord say, don't put, mark your body up? That's why we don't take you people seriously. You're out your mind. You're mentally ill. It says delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs. And it's many of them. So it goes into these Christian sayings. You people write these different scriptures that you think apply to you, but they don't. They apply to the Israelites, And people write this, they'll get the bumper stickers. They'll, like I said, they'll get the tattoos. They'll have a little pamphlet, handing pamphlets out with certain scriptures on them. But this is madness. The Bible is only for the Israelites. That's it. So all this, you got fooled by the Christian church yet again. And what the Christian church has mastered is making the Bible apply to anybody, or in particular Christians. Right? Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rachat, Kodash, Shalom.